Hello, this review is out a bit later than it should be, but I need some time for delivery as usual. But today we will be talking about Shanling UP5, their new Bluetooth receiver, or considering size and feature set, probably it's a portable digital to analog converter with headphones amplifier and with a wireless functionality. So they released UP4 some time ago, but now they drastically boosted it, adding a screen using more modern digital to analog converters. Here used two 9219s yes digital to analog converters, new Qualcomm 52 something chip for the wireless protocols, and you can see it supports all modern codecs, and also XMOS as a USB interface, so it's a good USB interface now too, MQA support and so on. So in terms of specifications, it's a pretty good and interesting device. Here as you can see that list of supported codecs. And the price is a bit on the higher side of things. They increased the price, it costs $180 now. So let's have a closer look what we've got. Package is traditional for the Shanling with a side flip on magnets. Looks pretty attractive. So it opens this way. Here we are getting UP5 itself, and underneath goes accessory settings. So manual, warranty card. They are not that interesting. Short USB-C to USB Type-C cable, so you can connect it to computer or to charger, or you can connect it to your smartphone instantly. And to connect to laptop or desktop, there is an USB Type-A to USB Type-C adapter. And here is the case. It opens this way. Shanling decided to go a bit unusual and fancy way. It's not 100% practical, but definitely looks stylish. So let's push it out. In terms of design, it's a typical Shanling device. You can see that they are very consistent in the shape and user experience of their gadgets, and UP5 is mimicking Shanling line of DAPs. I'd really like them to make notches on the side like they do for the audio players, but it would look even cuter than it is. But anyway, it still reminds miniaturized version of their players. You can see it's made of metal, nice rounded edges, smooth surface, and glass on the back and on the front side. Of course, it gathers fingerprints pretty actively, but what can we do with that? It's a price to pay for this beauty. So on the back side, company logo and high res, and on the front side you can see that it supports NFC. On the bottom there is USB for charging and to use it as a digital to analog converter, and increased size. Actually it's pretty big. You can see the compressions in terms of size with closest rival with FiOS BTR5. It's smaller by almost all dimensions, while BTR5 is not a small, but Shanling is bigger. But in that bigger case, they've accommodated a pretty big battery, so it will give you from 8 to 11 hours of work from the balanced output, and about 13-14 hours in the single-ended out in the single digital to analog converter mode. On the side there is a universal play button. It can be used to start playback, to navigate tracks, and to access the menu. On the top there are 3 outputs, single-ended, if I remember specs right, it's 110 milliwatts for 32 ohms load, and 2 balanced outputs that will give to 240 milliwatts for 32 ohms load. It has both Pentacon and 2.5 millimeter. And also here is a microphone. Here I used pretty good microphone made by Knowles. I bet you didn't know that Knowles made microphones too. On the side there is a typical for Shanling rotating and clicking wheel. You can rotate it to change the volume and change settings in the menu. You can press it to access, to turn on and off. And also there is a screen on the front panel, but unfortunately it's definitely not really bright. It shows current codec, it shows Bluetooth and battery status and volume. And if you press this button for 2 seconds, you can access the menu. Then by clicking wheels you can select different options, and by rotating it you can change them. So car mode, you can turn it on and off. Charging, you can also turn it on and off. Screen brightness, it's actually maximum 1. It flickers on video, but in real life it's not flickering. And volume during boot up, firmware version, gain low or high, digital tone converter mode, dual or single, and filter, equalizer, you can turn it on and off, USB audio mode, and car mode. We're going to the next circle. So it's really nicely built and in my opinion looks pretty fancy. And here is the case. You can see it's not created with a clip, it created to wear it on your belt or somewhere like that. With this case you won't be able to attach it to your sleeve or somewhere close to the neck of your t-shirt, for example. But I think third-party cases will be available. Digital tone converter fits really tightly into this case, and inside of this case it looks pretty attractive. This case is not really convenient, but it's definitely stylish. And to summarize this part, you can see that digital tonal converter is built nicely, works good, looks stylish. And here is a companion app, it's Shanling's controller, and in that Shanling controller you can access special section for Bluetooth device control. Here you can see device name, remaining battery, current codec and firmware version. Here you can turn on off charging and car mode. You can select what Bluetooth codecs it will use for connection. You can select default volume. You can select English voice assistant or natural prompt and switch UAC 1.0 mode, so old audio version. You can select display brightness here, but actually maximum brightness is still not really super bright. I don't know why brightness adjustment is here. And you can select timer after which screen will turn off. Also in the audio settings, single or dual digital tone converter, gain, channel balance and just one of 2 filters. Not all filters available here. Equalizer is just a fairly regular one. You can turn it on and you can select some presets. So music should be playing in order to hear how this preset is applied. And I must admit that they have definitely some kind of unusual rock preset, but let's keep it off. And in the instructions it downloads manual from the internet and shows it to you. Actually, white background doesn't look really fancy, but anyway, probably it's some kind of bug that will be hopefully fixed later. Anyway, control app is full-featured and does whatever it should do. And of course about the sound, as earphones I will put Noble Audio Han on the table. And to show some examples as a transport I will use iBasso DX300. Actually, have you seen DX240? It looks really promising. If they keep about the same size, sound in smaller size, it will be a bestseller. Of course, vast majority of users will use this receiver with some smartphone or tablet or something like that, but my phone is busy filming this video, so I'm using player as a transport. And in terms of sound, Shanling is really consistent. They implemented their signature sound once again. but not on that level that was typical for the UP4. Here they've noticeably improved resolution and also added much more forward treble, but at the same time there is a slight added weight on both low frequencies and mid frequencies, and also a bit boosted dynamics on the mid frequencies. And of course, it's not done by frequency response. I'm pretty sure that with equalizer off, frequency response here will be almost flat. It's some manipulations with harmonics or with some additional characteristics. Anyway, bass is nice, it's deep, it's well controlled, it's really, you know, meaty and powerful, and it has some muscles. Of course, depth is slightly limited by the Bluetooth codec, but anyway, it goes as deep as Bluetooth allows, and even sometimes it sounds even a bit deeper thanks to that slightly added weight. It has a normal resolution, it's not trying to be super fast or focused on the smallest nuances, but details are present here, of course. It has nice texturing, but still leaning towards a bit of striking or punchy representation. Pretty pleasant and slightly highlighting acoustic instruments and sounding really fun with electronic music. And as an example, actually, I've got, let's go back. Here is my example of low frequencies. It's Charles Mingus, Fables of Faubus. Pretty well-known jazz tune, you quite likely heard it, and actually this one track can be used to test everything from bass to treble, because here you got nice percussions, lot of instruments in the mid frequencies, but for bass, of course, the most important is acoustic double bass. It's shifted slightly towards the right channel, and it sounds really nice, full-bodied, thanks to this receiver with a good amount of presence and small nuances. Mid frequencies are also a bit highlighting dynamics and slightly adding more weight, so it gives more body to the vocal, slightly more body to the instruments. It's not focused on the micro contrast, actually it's not going far into detalization, it's not trying to be sharp, but resolution of course is nice, again as far as Bluetooth codecs allows. With LDAC you can get a pretty decent resolution. It's not super critical for the quality of records, of course better material will be a plus, but definitely not the most critical one, because it's trying to overwhelm you with the dynamics and emotions, and you just focusing on the enjoying music and not on the critical listening. But probably for the Bluetooth receiver it's a kind of nice behavior. And in terms of stage, it's slightly above average both in width and in depth, with a good depth layering. It's pretty okay for the Bluetooth receiver in my opinion. And as an example, Exiles by King Crimson, nice classical King Crimson track with interesting sounds in the beginning and with a lot of guitar work, keyboards, vocal, many things that fit into right into the mid frequencies and requires nice and technical performance. Of course, to fully unveil the potential of this track we need to disconnect this jack from receiver and simply plug it directly here, but for the Bluetooth mode it sounds pretty well. And you know, actually, if we don't go into that audiophilia, I think that Bluetooth, especially advanced codecs like LDAC and probably LC3 that will be released once somewhere in some future, are pretty okay to enjoy the music. If you don't going into the critical listening, they will sound pretty decently. And treble, it's probably the biggest step forward comparing with UP4. It's they just basically remove it to the normal amount. It's not boosted comparing to the overall representation, but it's boosted comparing with UP4. It has average extension, but it's not a fault of receiver itself, it's a fault of Bluetooth codecs, because they're reducing the extension on both ends drastically. And of course we don't expect some rich layering or something like that, just basic overtones, and it plays it nicely, not too sharp, not too soft, so just basically fairly balanced natural treble with nice resolution. And as an example, it's Rush Digital Man. As usual, Rush has a lot of percussions, and this small device plays it nicely. Not perfectly, but you know, nicely. And in terms of power, it's pretty universal. It can drive even pretty power-hungry models with balanced output. Of course, not toughest planars or something like that, but full-size headphones, even pretty high impedance ones, won't be an issue for it. But of course you will pay with battery life for that. And it's pretty good and quiet with sensitive in-ear monitors. Not absolutely that quiet, but background noise is really low, and I think it's pretty good. In terms of connection quality, it's also nice, holding connection well, even with LDAC. On the street I didn't experience any issues, except of places with lot of interference. But connection holds really well, and delay is audible, but pretty low from video to audio. And speaking about the compressions, actually just two closest rivals. Also recently was announced Bluetooth receiver by i5, but I didn't test it, and I'm not sure if I will. Anyway, QDLX 5K, it's slightly less weighty on mids and bass, and more pushing forward emotions, a bit more rough and a bit more aggressive in terms of representation. But in general, in terms of resolution, staging, you know, that stuff, they are pretty close. QDLX offers a lot of more settings, this one offers more battery lifetime. And with Fio BTR5 2021 version, you know, it's once again the situation when, in terms of resolution or some other performance, they are not far from each other. They offer really different sound representation, because Fio is leaning more towards the natural and monitoring sound, while this one is more fun and engaging in dynamics. And one of the main advantages of this device is improved battery lifetime, of course. That's one of the sources of improvement. I'm not sure, but probably I will create separate video with comparisons if I'll have some spare time. Forgot to mention actually wired connectivity. When you connect it via USB Type-C, you definitely getting noticeable improvement in terms of resolution, in terms of extension. Bass became deeper, treble became more extended and slightly more saturated, and of course mid resolution improves. So wired connection, it's a step forward in terms of sound, and UP5 makes a pretty reasonable sense when used as a portable USB digital to analog converter, and it has a benefit compared with regular dongle digital to analog converters. It has internal battery that improves amplification and control with higher hard to drive headphones. So it was Shanling's UP5, interesting device, interesting receiver with lot of features, and especially it will fit your taste if you like weighty and mighty representation. Thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.